This is the It's Not So Late show with your host, Aaron Hanania, the voice of young America, interviewing celebrities, influencers, and exploring unique and interesting stories that you need to hear. And now, please welcome your host of the It's Not So Late show, Aaron Hanania.
Today I am joined by the one and only Carole Baskin. Carole, first off, thanks so much for joining me today.
Hey, all you cool cats and kittens. Thank you for having me, Aaron.
Of course, and my first question is Big Cat Rescue. How did you get into the Big Cat Rescue and saving the big cats?
I've done bobcat rehab and release since I was 17 years old. But when I was in my 30s, early 30s, I had ended up at a exotic animal auction. My husband and I were in real estate, and we would buy llamas and turn them loose on big tracts of land because they clear about eye level. And we went to an auction to buy some llamas, and this guy next to me started bidding on a bobcat. And so I leaned over and I said, when that cat grows up, she's going to tear your face off, because there's nothing more wicked than a bobcat. And he said that he was a taxidermist and he was just going to club her in the head in the parking lot and make a den decoration out of her. And so I started crying and my husband started bidding, and we went home with a bobcat. But because she was born in captivity, it wasn't legal to release her. So she ended up having to be kept for her entire life. And that led us to a fur farm where we then rescued 56 bobcats and lynx who were going to be slaughtered for their fur. That led us to another fur farm where we rescued 28, another fur farm rescued 22. And then people started calling and saying, would you take my lion? Would you take my tiger? I had no idea people had lions and tigers as pets until the 90s.
Wow. So, I mean, like, how would you get led on to these farms? You say that there's some with 28, some with 22. Would someone call you and just say, hey, I have a farm that has, bobcats or cats that you should come check out?
Well, with the first fur farm, and actually the first two were the same fur farm, but we just went back and got all the adults the second year. Um, it was because Windsong, the bobcat that we had brought home from that auction, was just wretched. And she was scaring our German Shepherd to death. She was attacking my husband and my daughter. And so my husband started calling around, and this guy said, well, I'll sell you something, one of her own kind to raise up with her. And so that's why we drove up there. But when we got there and we saw that they were going to kill all these lynx and bobcats for their fur, again, I started crying. And my husband said, how much for everybody here? And that was how they ended up coming home with us.
That's so cool. So, where did you get the name Big Cat Rescue? How did that come to be?
We used to live on a little, well, we still, the sanctuary is still on a little dirt road called Easy Street. And so we called it Wildlife on Easy Street, and nobody knew what that was. Some people thought it was a bar. Some people thought it might have something to do with online porn when the internet came along. And so we were planning our first black tie gala, and we were looking for some help in marketing it. And the first thing that the people at the PR firm said was, Wildlife on Easy Street. That's such an unfortunate name. And, we all thought it was pretty funky. We lived on this little dirt road called Easy Street. And they said, it makes it sound like you don't need money because you're living on Easy Street. It says that you rescue wildlife when all you rescue are big cats. And so we sat down for a strategy session that ended up in Big Cat Rescue, because that's what we do.
That's crazy. So now, what is the biggest challenge you face with Big Cat Rescue? Maybe things have changed over COVID. Is it, budget? Is it just the fact space might be limited? What is that big challenge that you face?
The biggest challenge that I face is ignorance and apathy. Most people don't know that we're going to lose the tiger in the wild in the next 5 years. And even the ones who do know don't seem to care. And so that has been really frustrating because we're running out of time. And the only way we're going to save the cats in the wild is to end the captive breeding of them, because that's creating a legal smokescreen for illegal activities like poaching.
I study environmental science, so this is super interesting to me. And I wish, like you just said, I wish more people were realize that there are only 5,000 left. Do you know where that large population is other than the ones that are in captivity?
India has the largest population with somewhere around 3,900. And I believe in Siberia, there may be 500 to 1,000. There's hardly any tigers left. And we're talking like 95% of the cats have been lost in the wild in the last 200 years. And so the things that we've been doing, we have to change. It hasn't worked. We have to do something different.
So there's the Big Cat Act. I see the Big Cat Safety Act. I see you promoted it a lot. Can you tell me and my viewers a little bit about what that act is?
The Big Cat Public Safety Act does two things. It bans cub petting. Anybody who watched Tiger King saw that they hand these little cubs around. People pay $20 or $25 to have their picture made with the cub. And USDA says that if you use a cub under 8 weeks, that you shouldn't be doing that because they haven't had their shots yet. And they say if you do it after they're 12 weeks, they're too dangerous because they can take a finger off. And so that means the people who are doing that every month have to pump out new litters of cubs. So the Big Cat Public Safety Act will ban cub petting. People just can't pay to pet a tiger cub. You shouldn't be able to touch a tiger cub, for crying out loud. And then it phases out private ownership. So people who have them can keep them. They just won't be able to buy or breed more. And I don't think that's going to be a problem because nobody ever keeps their pet tiger. They might get it because it seems cool at the time, but as soon as it's a year, 2 years old, it's 200-300 pounds, and then they don't want it anymore.
And I think too, resources. People don't realize that they're small when you first get them, and then they get really, really big. So I know you know this firsthand. So can you tell what goes into taking care of a cat?
We have about 50 exotic cats, and it costs us between $3.5 and $4 million a year to take care of those cats. So each lion or tiger is going to cost a private owner between, well, right around $10,000 a year for each one, just for the food and the vet care. And so that doesn't even count all of the overhead of the sanctuary or caging or any of those other expenses. It's just feeding and vet care that's going to cost people $10,000 a year. Nobody wants to spend that on an animal that they can't show off with anymore, because once it's a year and a half old, it's too big to walk on a leash. It doesn't want you to be handling it, and it's going to put you in your place if you try.
We mentioned big cats in cages. Are you against like zoos or like like the carnivals or circuses where they take them around? Is that banned also in that Big Cat Act?
No, the Big Cat Public Safety Act only bans the cub petting, and it phases out private ownership. I don't believe any big cat should be bred for life in a prison cell, but this bill isn't going to be the thing that fixes that.
So you mentioned too that about approaching big cats. Don't do it. But I think for some reason, there's this public misconception that it's okay to go near a large cat in captivity. Why is this the case?
I think it's because of social media, because so many people will see somebody with what they think is an adult. They'll see somebody rolling around on the ground with some lions that are big. I mean, they might be 200-300 pounds, but they're still mentally kittens. And they'll see somebody walking a tiger on a leash, or they'll hear that some celebrity had a pet tiger, and they want to duplicate that. And unfortunately, we don't have any laws that keep them from trying to duplicate that. And it's all a fantasy. Once that cat is a few years old, it's going to be hundreds of pounds and way too dangerous for people to handle anymore.
What interactions do you have with your cats? Obviously, you do it safely, but what are the interactions you can have safely with a big cat?
Zero. We don't touch them. We don't handle them at all. We used to allow contact with the keepers and with my daughter and I with the smaller cats like bobcats and servals and caracals. But in 2003, I think, or 2004, we stopped doing that. And the reason is it just sends the wrong message. If I have handled a cat, and I've been taking care of bobcats since I was 17 years old. I'm 60 now, so I've got a lot of experience in knowing when that bite is coming. You can just see like a little glint in their eye, and to get your hands out of the way. But if somebody sees me doing that, then they're going to think that they can do that too. And if I stand there and do that and say, well, I'm special, but you shouldn't do this, everybody thinks they're special. And people, I mean, if you think about Roy Horn of Siegfried and Roy, who was a better tiger tamer in the world than that? And his cat tried to kill him. So nobody is safe from the perils of handling a big cat. And I think it's really wrong for anybody to send that message that they could be a pet or tractable.
Does the public like the fact that you're saving cats, or do you get any like flashback from the local community? Maybe people in the right around where Big Cat Rescue is. Do you ever get any like pushback from the public, or are most people pretty okay with it?
Our neighbors have always been wonderful. It's probably because when we bought the property that we currently are on, it was 40 acres back then, it's 67 acres now. It was in the middle of freaking nowhere, and everything has moved in around us. So over time, people knew that we were there, and they wouldn't move next to us if they didn't want to live next to big cats. So we haven't had the problem some places have had where people didn't want the cats in their neighborhood. And it wasn't, we never had any kind of negative feedback from the public or anything until Tiger King. And that was just because people saw something on TV and believed the narrative and didn't bother to do any research. But everybody who knows us loves us.
Yeah, so I'm not gonna delve into the logistics of Tiger King. I just want to talk about how that's like brought attention to you, helping your cause. So how did that help you? Because now your name's known. So has that helped you with saving the big cats now that you have more influence with your name?
I didn't know how that was going to go after Tiger King, because I have been working on this federal bill since 1998 with my family and with other animal organizations. And when I was portrayed as this gold digging, home wrecking murderer,
Yeah.
I thought, will it be hard for me to set up an appointment and go in and meet with my member of Congress? Or will they have watched this television show and just, whether they believe it or not want any of their constituents to think that there was some impropriety? And as it turns out, thankfully, the people that are in office are a lot smarter than the average person that watches TV. And so they can pretty quickly figure out that I am not any of those things that I was portrayed to be in Tiger King. And so it has been, I don't know if it's been helpful, if the show's been helpful to me in that way, but the one thing that it has done is when I would go before Congress before, nobody believed that there were so many tigers and lions in backyards and basements, even though I'd go in there with all of these facts and figures and police reports and news articles. Nobody believed it was true. And now that they've seen it on Netflix, they're like, oh my gosh, there's a lot of this stuff going on. So that's been helpful.
Really? So you're saying that that just them seeing it on Netflix, which you can't trust everything you see on the internet, they take that over all the years of research and firsthand knowledge that you've amassed?
Yeah, it's amazing. Unless people see it with their own eyes, I think it's really hard to convince them of something that they just can't even fathom.
Now, how did that trip to Washington go? I saw it on your social medias. I heard it in the news. I saw some videos of you in DC. How did that go? Was it successful? Were they willing to listen to you? Did they want to sign the bill?
Well, I went in December and then I just got back last week or this week. I've lost track of time. This is what, Sunday? So it was last week. And it was great. The first time, I think we had something like close to 40 appointments. This time we had about 25 appointments, and everybody was just so engaged. And it was really, really nice to be able to talk to so many people and so many members of Congress. Usually it's hard to get a meeting with an actual member. You usually talk to their staff, but I got to meet a lot of the members. And right now we have 252 co-sponsors in the House and somewhere around 40, I think, in the Senate. And of that, over 50 of them in the House are Republican, and that's the hardest ones to get on the bill. And so when we passed on the suspension calendar in the end of last session, we only had half as many as we have now. So I'm sure that we will pass on the House floor as soon as it's called to a vote. And we're just working right now and trying to get a path through the Senate.
That's so cool. So what do you think changed? Since you said that the people have doubled that have now support you. So do you think something's like a mindset change? Do you think they spoke with each other? Did you bring new information when you went the second time?
I think it's just, this is how it works. Whenever you're trying to get a federal bill passed, we have 2-year sessions here. So every 2-year session, you build more and more co-sponsors, which are people who are pretty much just saying, whenever this comes up for a vote, I'm going to vote for it. And we've done that for year after year after year, getting more and more people to say that they would co-sponsor. So that we really thought we were going to get it passed last session, and we did get it passed through the House, but then it was in December. And so it was like the last 3 weeks, and you got all the holidays and everything. So we just couldn't get it through the Senate in time. So this year we hit the ground, or 2021, we hit the ground running. And I think we will get it done this year.
That's awesome. Now, I saw that there was a petition you were spreading around social media, and I do want to talk about social media. How many people have signed that so far, and has that been helpful to getting to the congressmen and women that, hey, all these people are supporting me, now you should too?
I'm not aware of a petition. Bigcatact.com.
That's it.
But it's not a petition. Petitions are really useless. The only reason that people put petitions out there is to gather your email address so they can market to you. Nobody pays attention to a petition, but it is the thing that people want to do because it's so easy. So what we ask people to do at bigcatact.com is a lot harder. We're asking them to actually send an email. We're asking them to send a tweet to their member of Congress. And the big thing they can do is actually make a phone call, which just terrifies people. So we tell them, do it on the weekend, do it after hours. You're just going to talk to an answering machine. And we give you a little script as to what to say. So it's not hard. But getting people to do that, that's been hard.
Do you know how many people have done that? Do you have like numbers or a ballpark, you think?
I should know that off the top of my head, but I don't. I would say that it's in the neighborhood of about 150 to 200 a week.
Wow, that's awesome. Now, how do you reach out to these people? Like, what's your number one way of connecting with these people that then call or email or write to a congressman or woman?
We have about 90,000 people on our mailing list that we reach out to that way. But I would say social media, our biggest platform probably is Facebook, and then Instagram, TikTok, Twitter.
Oh yeah, and you're also on Cameo too. So how has that been going? I've seen those, all over TikTok and Instagram. Have you gotten any really weird requests on Cameo yet?
Yeah, I have. Unfortunately, people will actually pay nearly $300 to do a cameo just to get me to say something that they can embarrass me with. So apparently there was some pedophile that they wanted me to wish a happy birthday to, but he was from Australia or somewhere that I'd never heard of this guy.
Yeah.
And so I wished him a happy birthday. And then everybody's like, look, she's a friend of a pedophile.
Oh no. Oh
Yeah,
no.
people are just wretched.
How many Cameo requests would you say you've done?
Over 3,700.
3,700. So is that what you do a lot? Most of your day is like spending time with social media, would you say?
Yeah, I do a lot of those. When COVID hit, we had to shut our gates because we didn't want our people to catch COVID. And then we found out about a year later that cats could die from COVID. So our gates are still closed. And that means we can't do tours. And that was over $1 million a year of our revenue that was lost. So the cameos have given me the opportunity to make at least some of that back.
How has it been trying to care for the tigers while also keeping yourself and them safe? Has that been difficult with COVID since your gates aren't open, for your staff?
It's been very hard. I mean, even though we are really health conscious here, if you have any idea that you're sick, we ask people not to come in. If they're anywhere around the cats, they have to wear masks. If they're handling the cat's food or enrichment items or anything that the cat might put in their mouth, they're wearing masks and gloves. And we're all vaccinated here. And yet, even despite all of those precautions, some of our people have fallen ill to COVID. And even 2 of our cats have been diagnosed with COVID. And so it's a really scary situation, and why we are limiting as best we can the number of people that are exposed to our cats.
Now, I'm new to the cats getting COVID idea. I didn't know that big cats can get COVID. So what are some of their symptoms? What does it look like when they do get sick?
It's coughing, and when just like with people, I guess it's hard to ask the cat if this is the case, but with people, they say that you can't taste your food and you can't smell it. And when cats can't smell or taste their food, they won't eat. So what we see is coughing and not wanting to eat. And that can be really scary because the cats that we rescue, whenever we work with other sanctuaries, we always take the oldest, the sickest, the ones that have really bad health problems, because we have the ability to deal with that better than most other sanctuaries. And now, as a result of that, we have some of the most likely to contract COVID animals because they have all of these existing health conditions.
Does it last about 2 weeks in the tigers, similar to how it is with us, or is it a quicker turnaround time for them to get healthy?
We've seen it be a lot quicker. I'd say it was probably under 10 days.
Now, do you have a favorite cat? Because I asked a lot of people on my social media that if they had questions that I should ask you. Big Cat Rescue even commented on my TikTok page earlier today. So I'm wondering if you have a favorite cat or a couple favorite cats and why that is.
My favorite species of cat is the bobcat because they're just so fierce and they just never back down. But I never had a favorite cat until about 4 years ago. And that's when I met Aria the tiger. And she is just the most amazing cat. If there was ever a cat who should just hate everyone she comes in contact with, it would be Aria because of the way she was treated. And yet she's just easygoing, so forgiving, so fun loving, and she just inspires us all to make the best out of whatever hand we're dealt.
And how old is she now?
Gosh, Aria is probably about 15, maybe.
Is that a pretty like healthy lifespan for a tiger? Do they live pretty long, or are they kind of short lifespan animals?
In the wild, big cats usually live 10 to 12 years. In most zoos, they usually live 10 to 12 years. In private homes, they don't live very long at all, or else the people get rid of them because they just don't know how to take care of them. But in sanctuaries, they can live into their late teens and early 20s. We had one of the cats who had COVID. She died when she was 25 years old, which is crazy. I mean, it's like twice as old as they live. And we had a cougar that lived to be a month shy of 30.
When you're raising some of these cats, I understand over your career you've definitely raised some from the kittens. Do you keep them inside, or are they always outside when even when they're little kittens?
When they're small, they are usually inside because our cage wire is 4-inch square. And if it's a kitten, it could go right through that. Um, the bobcats the only cats that are legal to release to the wild are those that are born in the wild. So we still do a lot of bobcat rescue, rehab, and release. In fact, we just rescued one yesterday. And sometimes those are orphaned kittens. So they get raised in our bobcat hospital and they're kept away from people except for when they're being fed. And then we have cameras on them all the time so we can make sure that they're doing okay. And then they move to an indoor outdoor room that has 1-inch squares. And then they go out to a 5,000 square foot enclosure where they actually learn to hunt, and that's got 1-inch squares.
So when you do this like catch and release, of wild bobcats, are there places you can release them in the United States, or do you send them abroad to their native like habitats and environment?
Well, the only ones, like I said, that can be released are the ones that are native. So here in Florida, which are the only ones that I can rehab and release are Florida animals, that would be bobcats and Florida panthers. And we've never had a Florida panther come in, but the bobcats are the only ones that are legal for us to rescue, rehab, and release. None of the bigger cats like lions or tigers or leopards, none of those cats are native to America. And yet they're born in America in cages. So it's not legal to take them to India or Siberia or any place because they weren't born there. And all of these cats that are owned privately are crossbred and inbred. So they would actually pollute the gene pools of any of the cats in the wild if that were even legal.
Yeah, speaking with cats and whatnot, I want to talk about Dancing with the Stars because I saw you on Dancing with the Stars. I want to know, how did that come to be? Did a producer reach out? Did you reach out to them? How did that happen?
After Tiger King, there were probably about 300, 350 media outlets that reached out to us. And because I had felt so betrayed by the producers of Tiger King, we had worked with them for 5 years, and they said they were working on what would be the blackfish for big cats that would expose all of this abuse so that people would never pay to pet a tiger cub. And that was not what they did. So I refused to talk to the media for a bit because I kind of licked my wounds.
Yeah.
And my daughter was looking at the list of people that had reached out. And she said, well, I think you should do the Jimmy Fallon show. And I think you should do Dancing with the Stars because I love those shows. I had never seen either of the shows. But the Jimmy Fallon thing turned out to be a prank.
I was gonna ask
And
you about that. What was your reaction when you found out that it was a prank?
well, my first reaction was, well, that was a really rude thing to do. And then they got like 7 million views and they let me talk for 45 minutes about saving tigers in the wild. So I was like, hey, it's all good. I don't care if they made fun of me. It got the message out there. And then I thought, well, this whole Dancing with the Stars thing is probably a scam too, because the girl who called, or the lady who called me, her name was Dina Katz. It was like, what are the chances? It's really, her name is Katz. And she convinced me that she was really who she said she was. And they said that they would give me a platform to talk about tigers and why we need to protect them. So they also said that they could teach me to dance, which I thought was absolutely ludicrous. And turns out I think they were wrong. But I proved them wrong by the third episode.
Well, how long did you practice for each dance, and how long did the choreography take for your dances on the show?
Oh man, the first 3 weeks that I was there practicing for the first show, because the show hadn't started yet. So we had 3 weeks of practice. We practiced every single day in the studio. And then they had given me an apartment while I was there. So I moved all of the furniture into one bedroom of the apartment so that I could actually use the whole living room, dining room, kitchen area for a dance floor. And then every day I would ask Pasha to do my moves, and I would film him doing my moves. And then I would play them back on the TV and I would duplicate what he was doing. And I did that until I had blisters just bleeding from my feet. But I was determined I was going to stay in that show through the whole thing, because every week I got to talk about big cats. And by the third, and then the second show, we had 2 weeks to do it. And then the third show, we only had 1 week to do it. So each week it was getting shorter and shorter, the amount of time that we had to get ready for the next show, which it really showed in my performance.
Yeah. So, do you think that helped though? I mean, did you get the good community feedback from being on the show? Did that help your cause like you hoped it would?
Yeah, it really was interesting. So many people said that they had seen me in Tiger King and they thought that I was just like this zombie-like person and that I had no personality. And once they saw me willing to get out there and make an idiot of myself to dance and talk about tigers, that they realized that I had a passion for what I was doing. So I think it did help people to understand there was more underneath the surface of what they had seen.
And now you're really famous. I mean, you probably get recognized all over the place. What's that like? Because before Tiger King and all this came out, you probably weren't as famous. You probably could go to the store without having a million people come after you. So what is that like now? Whatever, anywhere you go, people probably recognize you.
Here in Tampa, we were so well known because we were always in the schools. Every kid that ever went to any kind of school around here had been to Big Cat Rescue. They knew who we were. Every time I would go grocery shopping or anything like that, people knew who I was, and they'd come up and they'd want to talk about big cats, Big Cat Rescue. I even had a whole bus pull over one time as I'm sitting at a stoplight. They pulled right next to me and opened the doors so everybody could say how much they love Big Cat Rescue. But after Tiger King was the first time that I experienced this outside of the Tampa Bay area. So when I went to Dancing with the Stars, they flew me in a private jet. And I got in, because of COVID, I didn't want to be exposed to airline travel. And so they brought me into this tiny little airport, and I get out of the plane and I'm walking across the tarmac and all these people run out for a picture. And I'm like, how did they know that I was coming? And I guess they just recognized me because nobody there was telling anybody that I was coming because it was a secret. And so it was like, wow, that is so weird.
That's so fun. And so do you sign a lot of autographs too, like in public these days, or, COVID, is that kind of limited? Do people ask a lot?
They don't ask as much as I would have thought, given the number of people who ask for selfies. I was in Texas and I couldn't believe how many people wanted me to sign their shirts, and it's like on their bodies. And it's like, I don't want to touch you, so I'm trying to do it with a pen.
Okay. Do they ever ask you like in selfies, like say like weird things or like talk to their friends?
Yes.
That's gotta feel pretty good. Do you ever talk to them about cats?
I do.
Nice. And have you ever had anyone write that in there, like pick up a phone or write an email to a representative yet?
Oh, I don't know. I haven't seen it.
Okay. Okay. And then,
but I have a little business card that I started carrying around because so many people asked me for a selfie. And so the card says, I did you a favor, so how about you do me a favor? And then it has the information on how to contact their member of Congress.
Cool. And now you say, hey, all you cool cats and kittens all the time. I see it a lot. So where did that slogan come from? How did you come up with that?
I think it was somewhere around 2012, maybe. I do something called a Big Cat Briefing every day where I film talking about everything that happened at the sanctuary that day. And I would always start it with something like that. And then by 2012, I think was when I finally landed on that one line. And I just started doing it every day, the same line. And so the reason I know the date is because we decided to copyright the phrase. And when I did it, I had to go back in time and see when it was that I started consistently using that phrase. And so I had to listen to so many of those old videos until I figured out when it was that I made that transition from things like, hey, all you cool cats, and then, hey, all you cool guys or whatever, and then, hey, all you cool cats and kittens. And I was like, okay, this is where it started.
So you do have it like copyrighted then, huh? That's pretty
Yeah.
cool. What was that is that a lengthy process to get a slogan copyrighted?
Yeah, it's very lengthy and very expensive, and people will fight you on it. I couldn't believe it. I was trying to trademark and copyright Big Cat Rescue, and or not Cat Rescue, because I had a little business where I sold jewelry called Cat Rescue, and the Caterpillar company wanted to fight with me about the name. It's like, this is nothing like Caterpillar. It's
Oh my god, have people tried to fight you on this? Hey, all you cool cats and kittens, or has that one been pretty okay so far?
so far so good, and my name so far so good.
Oh yeah. Oh, your name's copyrighted too, I bet, huh?
Now,
Do people ever try to sell like merch or thing or like knock off stuff with your name? Does that happen a lot?
all the time.
Really? How do you find
Yeah.
out about it when it's going on?
People send me screenshots of things that they've seen online. They're like, oh, so many. There was a shirt in Walmart. So many people bought this shirt, and it was like a bunch of pictures of cats, and it said, hey, all you cool cats and kittens. And it was not our cats. It was not
Oh my
anything that was supporting the sanctuary.
yikes! What was the end up result there? Did they end up compensating you like in giving it to the cats, or did that one just had to blow over?
I haven't sued anybody on the copyright stuff. I just wanted to be sure that if there was somebody horrible doing something horrible, that I actually have the copyright.
Yeah, so I have a fun question. What's your favorite quote or something you live by every day, other than "Hey, all you cool cats and kittens"?
I think it's what doesn't kill me makes me stronger.
Okay, that's a fun one. Any reason that one specifically comes to mind?
Because what doesn't kill me makes me stronger.
I like that. And, like, what's something you want the world to know about you, or maybe a misconception you want to just like push to the side? Since not a lot of people get the chance to speak to you personally, or interview you, or listen to an interview of you.
I'm in the media a lot, but I don't really care what people think about me, or I don't care if anybody ever remembers my name. What I do care about is a world that doesn't have tigers in it. I can't imagine a world with no tigers. And very shortly after that, it will be a world with no lions and no leopards and no jaguars. And it will be a world that's uninhabitable. And so I really hope people will pay attention to what's important. And that is the fact that we need to get off our butts, stop the breeding of these cats for these photo ops, and phase out private ownership in time to be able to save these cats in the wild.
Do you think that climate change and whatnot is also playing a role with like the cats declining population and other species like them?
Climate, climate issues are hugely problematic, as you know, but that's not what's driving the tiger to extinction currently. What's driving the tiger to extinction is the fact that we have commoditized the tiger, and it's a lot cheaper to shoot a tiger in the wild than it is to raise a tiger until it's 4 or 5 years old to be full size so that you can take its teeth or its bones or its hide. And so and this is why this is a huge problem, the US State Department says that when they're trying to get Asian countries to stop tiger farming, which is creating all of these tiger parts, if they go to China and say you shouldn't be raising these tigers and then starving them to death for their bones, they say, you in the US, you don't even know where your tigers are. Ours are on sanctioned farms, but you don't know where yours are. And so we have no credibility on the global stage to protect them.
Like, is there a way to change that?
Stop petting cubs, stop that breeding so that we don't have all of these animals that are stimulating the demand for their parts, because it's always going to be cheaper to get those parts from the wild.
Oh yeah, and in case people here want to follow you, what's like a prominence? What's your handles or your social medias for the people to follow you or to help your clause with the big cat rescue?
I have social media in my own personal name, but there's no reason to follow me because I am boring as all get out and I'm not good at responding. If you follow Big Cat Rescue, we are everywhere. We have huge communities. We have over 800 volunteers who are in our chat groups on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and Twitter, and they are answering your questions and they are befriending you and they are joining you in this effort to save these big cats and teaching you everything you need to know about protecting big cats. So those are the people to follow, and it's Big Cat Rescue anywhere you look.
Thank you so much for joining me, and thanks, so much for being super flexible with scheduling. I really appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, Carole Baskin, everybody.
Thank you, Aaron. Boy, you ask a lot of really good questions and fast.
Thank you so much.